We'll call the finance meeting. We'll call the finance meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Pat Kinney,
Here.
Blake Ellefson,
Here.
Dick Pufall. Dick Pufall,
Here.
Brad Ray,
Here.
Ron Stendor,
Here. Thank you. Next, we'll move to number 2, approval of the agenda. We have a motion by Mr. Pufall to approve.
Ron Stender will second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we'll move to number 3, public comments. Is there anyone here for public comment? Is there anyone online or on the phone for public comment? Anyone in the room or online or phone for public comment? Anyone online or in this room or phone for public comment? Hearing none, we'll move to number 4, approval of the minutes. Mr. Pufall makes a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Ron Stender will second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, number 5, discussion and action items. The first one, 5A, the aging unit budget request. And Laura, you gave us a copy of a document a few minutes ago in the room. There should be a copy of this in front of people, or she's going to do that now.
Thank you.
Laura, do you want to speak to this?
I do.
All right, thank
There's
you.
a whole bunch of information in there for you guys. So I have a little summary on the front. So some things as you're looking through, because I gave you my year-end budget from last year, our actual budget and expenses, so that way you can see what we have. As you look through there, anything that says in kind in front of it, I wish we were getting that, but that is just what our monetary volunteer amount of hours is. It is, the volunteers are valued at $29.97 an hour. So yeah, I wish I had all that stuff, but that's just, it counts for our grants with GWAR. So we use that to balance out when we don't have the cash to do it. Anything on there that says that it's GWAR is sometimes a 2 to 4 month reimbursement period that it takes for us to get that back. So it's colloquialism, as everybody knows, rob Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. That's what we do. It's kind of like some of the stuff in social services. The only programs that we can switch money between is our congregate and home delivered, and we always overrun both of those budgets every year because we haven't had steady increases. So as you go through, if you've got any questions, go ahead and fire. On our line item from last year, it shows there's $130 some odd thousand that came from Ashland County. Out of that, $15,997.80 of that is required match for that DOT grant that is on the line above it. That's $79,889. So the $79,889 is from the DOT. The 20% match is all that the county puts in for the transportation program. That leaves $116,558.69 that comes from the county. And like I said, if you look at what our meal cost is for underneath congregate and home delivered, we easily outrun that. And that's just the food costs. So also included in that packet is a chart that shows, and it's got a little blue circle around 30,000 some odd meals. That's only to the end of July for this year. Now, last year we did 31,116 meals. We are on track for the next 3 months to overrun that. So just a comparison from year to year. And next year we will see another increase for our food costs. Although because of the Northland situation, I am cooperating with at least the Butternut and possibly Glidden school districts this coming school year, which may help keep our costs down a little bit. We're not to actual contract phase yet, but, like I said, we already overrun the allocation we get from the county for the meals, and that is a state statute mandated service that we provide. There's some little tidbits in for the meals, and yep, we are looking at cuts from state and federal funding. So that money that comes through GUAR that you see at the top of there for our income, that I'm hoping we'll at least hold at that, but not holding my breath. What GUAR is doing is we will be prioritizing every person that calls in with a list of questions to see who needs our services the most in order to provide services and continue to provide services for those who need it. Our transportation, that there's also a chart in there. Oh no, that one's my chart. So we did over 6,100 rides last year, with 48% of those being either not ambulatory, which means we have to use the lift, or disabled, which can be a category of things from mental health issues and wheelchairs and things like that. But most of our bus rides are for people who need us the most, because we do door-to-door service. We're not like BART. That pretty much has been riding on the DOT money, that 79,889 that's in there for the DOT grant, and then the match of 15,997.80. We are seeing increased need for our busing services. And with the population in our county continually getting older and needing more assistance, both Bart and I have seen increases in need for medical appointments, cancer center, just shopping assistance and such. The one thing that I can't do yet, because like I said, some of this is like backwards goals. So the stuff that's on here, this is what I want to fix. We only do one bus trip a week out to Walmart because it's a long ride. So that takes up, usually our bus appointments are in 15-minute increments. It's harder now for people. Hune Drug has closed, so not all the medications are downtown. A lot of them are out to Walmart. Those are increased amount of rides along with increased length, which takes out other appointments that could be for people who need to go to different services or shopping and things. I was talking with Pat before the meeting. We have ordered another bus because our bus will seat 8 people in the seats. And if they both have small wheelchairs, we can get 2 on there. Otherwise it's one larger wheelchair or a, hover round kind of device. So that makes 9 people if we pack it for out to Walmart. But this new bus will give us 12 people we can take, and it will give us another bus. Here's part of the request for that. And they may seem like a lot, but we haven't had steady increases with the program for the life of the program. It's been kind of as needed basis, I want to say. I did ask for 15% last year. I have to look at that and say that I don't think it's going to cut it to cover meals for this year. We do the best we can. So how I've come at this is I've written a couple of grants, and I'm going through my Faith in Action piece, which is not funded through the county. I am doing a respite program, which will allow me to have another person, and I can have them help us out a percentage of the time for our aging unit. And I have a Meals on Wheels grant that's going to help with pet food support for people who are isolated. So, and it may not seem like a logical line across, but if the home delivered folks don't have food for their puppies or kitties, they're sharing their chicken from their home delivered meal. So we want them to eat their meal and us to support it. So that's, though, both of those programs are outside of this. But that's the only way I can see that we can have enough staff to actually do all of the data entry and tracking and everything that we're overwhelmed and overrun. I could have 6 people in there and we'd probably be able to keep up. Right now, we're at 3 full-time people. So my request for the busing side of things, I would ask that at least the match amount be doubled. So that way it would be another 15,997.80. That'll help me cover another bus driver, plus some expenses here and there with that. We work with Bart, so we keep all our expenses down. We cooperate on everything we can to keep everything running lean.
Could you say that again, what that request was and where on what document you're looking at as we reference this?
If you see where I wrote in on the budget with a pen, that 15,997.80,
Yeah,
that's just what the 20% match for the transportation grant is. If we could,
so this number right here,
nope. On
oh,
the,
that one.
on the blue and white, keep going, right there.
So this one here,
Yeah, that's stuff in my hand scratch on there.
so that one, so say it again, and
If we could double that, that helps support my busing service. It allows me to have another part-time person in there because all of my bus drivers are part-time. It's just my 3 office, well, me and 2 other office staff that are full-time, and by one of them, full-time is 30 hours.
so I want to make sure, when you say double that, are you referring to, there's this 15,000 there?
Yep,
Is that,
you can call it 16. I'm okay with
okay,
that too.
so that number there, is that the number that you're requesting? Or is that the number that
That's-
you want doubled?
That's just at the transportation piece right now. I need at least that much more just to keep up with the drive that we've got right now. People need longer hours, they need more trips out to Walmart. Like I said, both Bart and I are seeing increased need for the senior part of everything, and they're my backup. So that much will keep that transportation piece. Well, it'll get it up to speed.
Could we, not to critique, but on this first page, could you put what you're asking us for?
I did not.
I just think it would make more sense instead of burying it there without a
Oh.
definition of what that is. Right? I think we're
That you
saying,
can write on there, that's transportation match
but again,
for the grant.
it's a lot of things for us to kind of figure out so like right on the first page, you should have exactly what you just said, what you want that money for, so that we can see.
So you want me to submit something?
Well, no, you don't have to now, but I'm just saying going forward, because it's kind of confusing for me what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't even know what percentage is going towards transportation
20%.
out of the 132 that's highlighted.
Nope.
So
Um,
again, this is kind of
Just that 15,997.80.
is transportation related that you want us to increase.
And that is the only part that the county puts in that is required match for the transportation grant. So on the top of that list, it says on there, there's a DOT grant for 79,889.
Yeah.
That is what that's what the DOT gives me. And the only match that the county puts in for transportation is that 15,977.80. So that's all that the county gives me for the transportation program. So I'm just asking for that to double.
And then that 132 is our total contribution to
Yes.
you. And so that would go up by just 16.
That's just for the transportation. What's left in that 132 after you take out that transportation match is 116,558.69. I just, here I am, because I know on that end of things, what our county budget looks like. So I just want to try to get a reasonable increase each year to try to keep up with the meals. Because like I said, if you go down through that under C1 and C2, which run right into each other on that budget, there is meal or food costs. And those two together overrun that 116,000. Under the C1, it is 50200 contract food. It's 69,275.52 for congregate. Those are the people that come into our meal sites. And right underneath home delivered meals is 55,200 contract food, 70,428.16. So I just want to find something reasonable. And I don't know with the wonderful issue with Northland this year and having to go through all that and trying to find meals to replace that, there was no one place I could go in order to make sure that our people were food secure. So I'm having to split it down. And of course, I'm trying to keep those costs as low as I can. But like I said, those two numbers that I just said to you already overrun that 116, and we do get donations here and there. It's a fun, interesting little struggle. But if we were able to come up with a percentage increase each year to keep up with at least the contract meals. Guar at this time is able to support our wages in order to deliver all those and all our costs for the program. I don't know what it's going to look like if we get cuts, but then again, we'll have to go to a rank system and rank people according to how disabled they are, what kind of health issues they've got, if they have family in the area. There's a whole list. They're coming up with these now because every single program that I have that's listed in there that is food or senior supported is going to have a rank order for people.
Can I ask you, I tell this to everyone, it's always appreciated if we get something to read in advance. So we're trying to go through this and listen to you. So I'm trying to understand, for budget perspective, you've got most of 16 grand for transportation. What else is different, if anything, that you're asking for in this budget cycle versus the past, in specific items and specific numbers?
Last year, I asked for a 15% increase because it was reasonable. Seeing meal costs are overrunning that and seeing our numbers are on track to beat how many meals we did last year, and the need is there.
What percent are you asking for this year?
I'm thinking 20% would be reasonable, but I'm hoping that, like I said, that would just kind of catch us up with where we're behind.
And would that include that percent? Would that include the transportation
No.
monies, or is that separate?
Separate, because they're two different programs. I can't switch money between them. There's no way we can balance that out any other way. And like I said, an extra 16,000 would mean that I would be able to employ another part-time bus driver and catch up with some of these issues that we've had with Hune, Walmart, and the seniors having later doctor's appointments and such.
Okay. So for the committee, budget season is a process. I believe the administrator wants the final budget approved October 29th, so we have between now and then for any final decisions. Are you ready to consider a motion on this? Or would you prefer to have more time to go through this document and perhaps come back with more questions?
I'd like a little more time.
Do you have data on the ridership?
I do.
Um, is it,
It's just in a chart, so,
Okay.
we had, 6,108 rides last year.
so in 2023?
2023.
Okay. And then with your budget and things, how they are, including Northland, which we believe will be open this fall. But we don't know about after that necessarily, and then you'd have to go to, another plan. Do you have any inkling of your budget right now getting you through the rest of this year okay versus maybe not okay?
We'll make it this year. Like I said, I am able to move money between our congregate and our home delivered. And the thing is if it comes down to it, I have to protect the home delivered according to state statute. So, but this year, we'll be fine this year.
Okay.
And
Could I ask you, the committee seems to indicate that they like more time to go through this, and I know I would too. Could you send the administrator an email just indicating essentially what you would like the motion to be? So you've mentioned the transportation, you mentioned a 20% increase, but 20% of what? If I'm assuming it's the 116, so we can go back in the document and look at that and say, okay, this is what that's doing.
Yeah.
So very specifically what you're looking for in a suggested motion. And
I
then
can.
he can send that to us for the next budget meeting.
Yeah, the next meeting will be September 12th.
okay,
Yeah.
So
that's
that-
fine. And as you think of questions, go ahead. My email is director@ashlandaging.org. I will answer whatever questions you guys have. While I mention all this stuff, this also includes, since I got there, I have streamlined every piece of equipment that we've got. I have streamlined
Yeah.
processes to make it lean. I have tried to keep our staffing budget within what we've got because that's what we've got. Our goal is to feed people but
We remember 4 years ago when a previous administrator had a list of cuts and cutting Meals on Wheels got no traction. So,
well,
We-
technically it's state statute
Yeah, I know,
mandated,
but it-
so you can't really.
so the sooner you send that to the administrator, he can send it out to me and the vice chair. We'll look at it. And if we've got any questions, that'll give us time to get back to you. So that
Yeah.
at the next budget meeting, we should be very clear in what you're asking for. And I think it's best that we do that so that we don't get further into budget season. And then someone say, gee, I didn't understand that. Let me backtrack. So that way, when we discuss and vote on this, that we all have more clarity and then hopefully,
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
information in there and
Yeah.
it's in the overall, like I said, it looks like a huge amount of
Yeah.
money. But when it comes down to it, we used every dollar as frugally as what we can.
yeah,
And it's because Guar lets us use that volunteer in kind to match that keeps the cost down, but they even at the bottom of there too, our volunteer background checks are going up $5 a piece.
yeah.
And I have to run everybody's background checks right now so we can make sure that our MCOs or NGOs can continue to pay us because you have to have them run every so many years. So we're doing that before it goes to $15 a piece. We're doing it at 10. So
So as soon as you get that to him, then we can read that and then get back to you if we have questions. The other thing in the investments, there's a section called aging. I would like to better understand what that is and isn't in relation to this. Just so that,
all right, Mike is on the phone, so
yeah, just so that we know what's there and why and what that's used for. Okay? All right. Yeah,
Can I-
thank you.
just one thing so everybody knows. The Meals on Wheels part is required of counties under under both the federal and state Older Americans Act. So
Like how much of the, like anybody that needs it, like what's the criteria of what's required? Is that, you know, Laura?
On off, on off. We have forms. I can send you guys forms. You can see what kind of questions we ask people. Because it is, people that come into congregate have fewer restrictions than the home delivered. People on home delivered meals need to be homebound. I mean, unless they're going to their doctor's appointments or, you know, a hair appointment every once in a while, pretty much they have to be in their house 99% of the time. So
And so everybody that qualifies has to be met. That's what state statute says. then.
Yep.
Okay.
and federal statute.
Right. Yep, thank you. Next, we'll move to 5B, 8ADC presentation. Carver?
You needed a written request for, for the budget next year. I can certainly give you one if you'd like that. I'm not requesting an increase from last year, which was $50,000 to AADC. I've streamlined the data this year. The last time you invited me to come talk, I kind of got the feedback that I'd given you too much information, too much data. And so I tried to boil it down to the nuts and bolts, and that is about the dollar figures. So we can go through this real quickly. I provided that first table, which is just some very basic stats that we have, covers the beginning of 2023 until July of 2024. Since then, we have assisted 326 businesses. That includes business plan development, marketing assistance, social media coaching, grant awards, loans, and financing information. We've provided 11 down payment grants to entrepreneurs totaling $664,375. We have given 24 grants for professional services awards. Those cover attorney fees, accountant fees, and professional marketing fees for business startups. And that totaled $23,046. We have completed 669 field print appointments. This is a service that was previously only offered in Superior and Rhinelander. So teachers, healthcare workers, childcare workers, CDL, hazmat drivers, security personnel, financial institution employees, when they have to get their background checks, they have to start with the fingerprints. And now we can do that at AADC rather than having potential employees travel to Superior or Rhinelander in order to start that. Any questions on those services? Okay, the second table, I am displaying the amount of money that AADC has been able to obtain outside of Ashland County to bring to Ashland County as a pass-through AADC or as in direct support of Ashland County businesses. So of course, the very large grant we got was from the DOA, $1.8 million. We're in the middle of that grant right now. It's set to expire in December of 2024. However, they have opened it up to extensions, and so I have applied for an extension. And my understanding is they have not denied any extensions. So I am very optimistic that we're going to get a 9-month extension on that grant. We have received 2 different grants from the Department of Veterans Affairs for veteran entrepreneurs. And that was $133,333. We have another pending application for $92,200. And that money again goes to military veterans and their spouses who are starting businesses or expanding their current businesses. The Entrepreneur Partnership Grant, that is through WEDC. We have previously received $120,000 from them, and we have a pending application for $100,000. And then a new grant that we've applied for, the Program for Investment in Micro Entrepreneurs. This is a SBA grant. The amount of that is $269,410. In addition to that, I have also gotten the go-ahead from my board of directors to apply for a loan from the USDA. And with the money that we get from that loan, we'll be able to make low-interest loans to businesses in Ashland and Bayfield County. So we're hopeful to receive $461,610 in the next month or two. Notification that we're being awarded that. That's if there are other grants that become available, of course, I'll be pursuing those as well. The point that I'm trying to make is how much money that we're bringing into Ashland County and Ashland County businesses, that money that it's external source from Ashland County that goes out to our businesses or programs that supports their growth. We're at a clip right now, we're seeing an increase year after year of requests for our services. And we're at about a 20% increase this year over last year. And I expect that to continue and maybe continue to increase as well. We're beginning to see the start of climate migration. Folks from the southwestern states that are, and businesses that are unwilling to deal with drought and wildfires, looking to move to water-rich, water-dense areas, which is northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. And so we're getting inquiries in that respect as well. So we'd like to get ahead of that too. Any questions?
How much money is left in the Diverse Business Assistance Program?
As far as having money to give out, it's about as much as we've given out so far.
How much, so what is the balance about?
So right now we have given 11 grants at 664. We're about 670,000 that we have available to give out.
So the 1.8 million,
Yes.
you spent 600 and some?
What's that?
Of the 1.8 million, you spent 664?
We've spent more than that. This is the grants that have gone out because it
Hmm.
also paid for some staff members. It paid for rent. It paid for advertising. It paid for a lot more professional
So I'm just
structures.
I'm just asking what the balance is. How
What
much
the
is left?
balance is?
Yeah,
So
approximately.
670 is what we have budgeted for grants. And additional to that, I can't tell you what that exact amount is because the amount of money that I have left, some of it is reserved for grants, some of it is reserved for professional services, and then there's some reserved for employee wages. And I can't tell you what that is. I don't have those numbers in front of me.
So one of the discussions I think we've talked about is, a little bit transparency, like when we're giving monies to organizations, we need to understand, from a budget standpoint, how that fits into your funding mix. I think we would like to see a bit more. Possibly I would, just so I can understand what the 50,000 goes towards. The rents that were coming into AADC, it appears that there's been some impacts to the rental income. So again, just trying to get some transparency with what does the actual budget look like long-term?
Well, can you explain to me the impacts to the rental income? What are we talking about?
So Northwest SEP has moved out. There's been some discussions of possibly Spark moving, so a large anchor tenant. What does that look like for your income statement when that rental income is not being refilled, or has it been refilled? I guess that's the
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I wasn't aware that Spark was looking to move out. That's new information to me. I have not had that conversation with Scott. It hasn't brought up to me, so I'm unaware of that. And yeah, I'd like to talk to him about that. We have redone the SEP space. We've recarpeted it, and we have painted it. We, of course, would like to rent it out again as a full unit because it's 4,900 square feet. And it works best with the amount of small offices and the shared space that it has. If we don't rent it out as an entire space, then what we will do is we'll divide it into smaller sections. And that way we'll get, I'm sure that we'll be able to fill it because we've already had inquiries for it. We're full in all of our other office spaces, but it's very difficult for bigger businesses that need a larger office space to find that in Ashland. So if we can keep that intact, we would prefer to do that, if that helps. And what was the other part of your question, Blake? Yes, what would you like to know
It
about
would
the
just,
budget?
you know, because again, Laura came in and she's asking for an increase. You're not asking for an increase,
Correct.
but again, I think as a finance committee, it's kind of our job to understand where our funding is going out.
Yeah,
And then I can see what's coming back to us.
Right.
Again, I can see that.
Right.
So again, I think there was a discussion around some of that diverse business assistant going to salary. Well, once that money goes away, does salary go down? Like, those are questions, you know,
Sure.
long-term sustainability, really, without the rental incomes that were there. So those are just, I think, for our job as finance, if we're gonna give 50,000 annually, we just want to make sure we're getting some transparency from a budget.
yeah. So let me explain a little bit how we've been able to expand our services in Ashland County because of the increase in contribution. So we have been able to set up time during the month where we have a presence in Butternut. So entrepreneurs don't have to travel to Ashland or visit with us over Zoom. So we have a staff member that's able to travel there. We've been spending a lot more time on Madeline Island. And that has been pretty successful. In fact, it resulted in the largest grant that we have awarded, and that was to create a grocery store on Madeline Island, which was sorely needed. So when I have staff members that are able to travel to all parts of the county and work with entrepreneurs, that means that I don't do it. That means that I am able to search for these programs, write the grants, and chase that external money to come into Ashland County. So that helps me stabilize it. Now, two of my staff members, if we don't get this extension for the DBA grant, their time will end because their salaries are paid for that. When it comes to rent, yes, SEP has moved out. That's true. But we have also increased our occupancy rates in the last couple of years, pretty significantly. So prior to SEP moving out, we were starting to be consistently above 90% occupancy, which is pretty darn good for a 60,000 square foot building. Does that help?
Carl Rashino, the Spark grant ends at the end of the year.
Excuse me?
The Spark grant ends at the end of the year. So there's no
And
more
it's
money.
not, it's not being renewed?
There's no more money after December 31st.
Okay.
So one of the questions that the administrator asked you got at in part something I was curious about. So when I look at the money here, in part that 1.8 million, there's administrative fees and expenses covered as part of that.
Mm.
So that work is being funded by that money. as opposed to money from the county or the city, or from rental income from the ADC building. So while it's very good that that money was acquired, the expenses related to it are also covered in that. So of the things that we're looking at here, is there anything where you are not getting administrative fees or expenses reimbursed for staff, et cetera, as you handle that money?
Are you asking me if there is anything that we're doing for the Fundiversity program that is not being reimbursed by the Fundiversity grant?
Is there anything on this piece of paper where you've acquired money where you're not recovering expenses or some administrative fees?
I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're
Well,
asking.
And typically, most organizations, if they apply for grants, one of the things they look at is there a percent of the grant money that goes towards covering administrative fees or costs?
Their
for, you
indirect costs?
mentioned
Mhm.
advertising staff. Are there any of these that you're not recovering any form of expenses or fees for?
If we looked at them individually, some of them require matching money, and some of them can cover existing staff. Some of them can only cover hiring new staff, and some of them can do both of them. It totally depends on the grant. Also, some of these grants, some of them, they give us the money in what would you call it, in sections before that we spend it. And some of them, has to be reimbursed. So we have to spend the money first and then we get reimbursed later. I don't know if that answers your question.
In a very simple perspective, you are getting some costs recovered or paid for through some of these grants. So
Through
as
some
we
of
look
them,
at these
yes.
numbers, with only this level of detail, I can't tell how much of your overhead is being covered by this activity. Therefore, I don't know what the county would need to give you so that you would do this anyway. And then in regard to remodeling the ADC building, you know, the history on that, Larson Jewell moved out, and so local units of government, state, the federal, there's been, you know, significant contributions to make that a viable enterprise. First an incubator and then an enterprise center. And so I think it's a fair question, at least in my mind, to ask how much investment needs to be done in that building. Is it worth doing? You know, what's the plan for that building if it isn't sustainable now as something that brings in a net revenue to the ADC? And I don't understand if it's doing that or not, given.
I see what you're saying.
Given, in other words, you know, your time is diverted to that too. And
Mhm.
I don't see anything that shows that these investments for a good 25 years have put us in a position where we can look at that and say, yes, here's the positive side of the ledger for what that building
Sure.
offers. I don't have numbers that tell me that either. So
Okay,
it's,
go ahead.
so there's just a lot of information that I'm looking at, because it's like Blake said, we know this budget season, I guess like everyone, we're gonna have some decisions that are harder than easier with everything that we're
Yes.
considering. And I think I speak
understand.
for everyone on the committee that information in advance is always appreciated, so we can read through it, think about it, ask questions. And the more detail on all of that is appreciated and helpful
Sure.
too. So it leaves me at least with questions on this as far as the return on that. And there's some things we have to do, like the previous presentation, we know we have to do
Right,
some things, and then there's things, you know, there's many things that we have to do as an arm of the state, and then there's things that we can choose to do.
sure.
And the things that we choose to do, we have to think hard at, because there's other things that we have no choice on.
Yeah,
So that more
Completely
information
understandable.
helps to winnow things, so.
right. I can talk about the building a little bit. That seems to be a concern. Having the building has been the most important thing that has allowed us to continue to provide our services for free to the entrepreneurs of Ashland County. It has always provided more than half of our revenue coming in, and it has been the stable thing for us. especially now that we have increased the occupancy percentages. We did get a grant from USDA through their RBDG program to address some of the repair and maintenance issues with it. The gutters, the driveway, the sidewalks, putting in ADA entrance so people could get in easily. And that was really helpful. So we have a long-term plan on things that need to be addressed with the building as far as annual maintenance. And of course, it's an older building, so we have to take that into consideration too.
Okay, anything else? Thank you. Then we'll move to 5C, financial consultant update, Mike and Steve.
Yes, can you hear me? I'm on the phone here.
Yes,
Yeah, okay. And I'm sorry I couldn't get into Zoom. I know you changed your agenda system here, and it used to be a link on there to click on, but I guess that's not there anymore. Anyway, we'll work on that for the next meeting. Dan, can you share that budget report?
I got all I have is the highway administration report.
Okay. I sent you the one before, the email before had the budget report on.
Let me look.
can you project that?
What?
Can one of you project that?
I'm looking to see if I even have it.
Yeah, I sent you 2 emails about a couple hours ago.
Did you send it today, Mike?
Yeah, 12:43.
Yeah, that's just the DOT, the highway department report.
Well, that's a highway report.
Yeah.
Okay, can I send it right now?
Yeah, can we,
Sorry about this.
why don't you send it to me right now and then, can we just go to healthcare discussion while I go put the. on
Yeah,
the
sure.
computer?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm gonna wait for you to come back on that. Dan's gonna go print something, and what I'd like to do is, and wait for him to come back on healthcare, but I think we could go to 5E, funding for 2 new deputies. We had an earlier discussion on that, so let's move to that item right now.
You'd like me to
Go
wait
ahead.
or?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So, like executive, I'll explain real quick. Most of you were there. Based on, Bad River not contracting with us anymore. It was 4 deputies, we're down those. And we're pretty thin on the streets most of the time in the summer. It's on each shift, night and days, there's 2 deputies on, sergeant flexes between night and days usually. With vacations going on, usually during the summertime, we average 2 deputies minimum. That's our minimum requirement staffing, night and days. We had a recent assault on a deputy a few months ago. They're doing okay, but like I said, I mean, mentally that was hard on everybody because they're out there by themselves at nighttime. But it made us think that, how long can we operate like this? And so that's why I'm requesting the 2 deputies. At the time, I mean, I put some numbers together. So basically the first year to start out, it'd be around 300,000. The reason it's a little higher because it's for the financing of the squads and then the outfitting. After that, it'd be around 263,000 every year for the 2. Pat had asked for OT. I pulled some numbers from the last 3 years. The current is around, right now, we're at 32,000 OT. The prior year was, for the entire year of 23, was 32,000. Prior to me being sheriff was 61,000 in 2022. And all in all, I guess, I mean, you can't predict overtime, but I don't think that has anything to do with what we're asking for right now. Because we don't have guys taking shifts. They don't, when we post shifts, they're not signing up for them because they want their days off too. Everybody has families and whatnot. Creating a couple positions would allow us to at least have the, fill those vacations, so we're not short-staffed.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing. Could you guys, if you want to talk, could you go in the hall, please? I'm just having a hard time hearing. My hearing, like, with background noise isn't what it used to be. I'm sorry. It's 20 years ago, I could still understand them, but I can't today. So, yeah, thank you. Could you run through those overtime numbers again?
Currently, we're at 32,000 for 2024. In 2023, we had 32,000. Prior to me starting in 2022, it was 61,000 for the year. Like I said, prior to this, I don't think the OT really has a bearing on it, being short-staffed. The minimum deputies we have that are working, there's open shifts, they're not signing up. I mean, we're not filling them. Obviously, they want their days off as well. They have families, most of them. So it's not necessarily we may see increase. We're posting the shifts. It's not coming down to, we're not filling them, but we have less bodies on our department. Like I said, we're down 4 deputies, and when it comes down to somebody getting injured, that's kind of why we thought about, okay, everybody's uncomfortable when they're down to that minimum staffing. Most of the time during the summertime, it's 2 usually. We try to have the sergeant flex between night and days, but when it's during the week, I mean, we go on the streets, management, that's not a problem ever, but
So there's a couple reasons I asked you about that. One of which is if we hire 2 new deputies, it'll reduce the overtime. We don't know exactly how much, but it'll reduce the overtime. And that means that the cost for those 2 deputies wouldn't be if you didn't have overtime right now, then those 2 deputies would be the full cost of them, but you're going to reduce overtime in the process of this, which is going to help make the cost of those two deputies a little more manageable than otherwise, because there'll be less overtime for
I
some
would
people.
say it's hard to predict emergency situations
Yeah.
that happen throughout the year, but
But all things being equal, there'll be less overtime.
I would hope so, but I think, like I said, compared to 2022, we've reduced that just based on, I don't know if it's because of the reduction of the 4, the contracting stopped, or, more responsible, watching of the budget or overtime as well.
So the other thing I want to understand is if you're posting shifts and nobody fills them, and you talked about this one person being out there by themselves when something happened, how much more are we sending deputies out alone because someone else isn't signing up for an overtime shift?
I'm sorry, I missed half of that. Like, the fan.
So I'm trying to understand how we had someone out there alone, and I'm trying to understand what happens if you post an overtime shift and nobody wants to take it.
Like, so our minimum staffing requirements is 2, so we have a north deputy and a south deputy. That circumstance, I mean, luckily that person, it was the end of the shift, they're coming north, or they're up north. It was somewhat close by, but it was a little too late. But it's just, that's minimum staffing. We can eventually start forcing people in all the time without those extra 4. We've done it before, but if we continuously do that, I mean, like I said, I mean, everybody else likes their days off. Like right now I have a deputy, our chief deputy who's at management is going to fill that shift because we don't like turning people off. This is a family vacation. And we don't mind going on the streets at all. But like I said, it's just the magic number was always having the extra 4 when we had it with Bad River. And I don't foresee that going anywhere anytime soon. So I don't know what we do. I mean, do we, like I said last time in 2001, prior to that, our Bad River having their own police department, we had part-timers that filled in all those open shifts. But we don't have that anymore. I mean, it's hard enough to find a full timer, let alone a
Mm.
part timer now. It's just the times are different, very different for law enforcement, so.
Blake?
So what did Bad River decide to do? Are you just required to service them when there's an emergency,
Correct.
but they don't
There's-
have any service, like they don't have their own police now, or do they?
No, as of this time, by statute, it's no different like LaPointe, when they didn't have anybody on, we have to respond. It's easier, obviously, on mainland. We respond to every call in Bad River. It's one of the areas of our most calls. So, and we still continue as is, we're just shorter staffed.
So you lost 4 when they didn't renew, and we we haven't been able to get, and now you want to add 2 new ones to kind of offset that. And we got to look at, when is this request coming for approval? Is this today that we look to add these staff? Is that what we're doing?
Exec committee already approved it. They sent it here to approve spending the money.
So about 300K in the first year
260,
after that.
263,000 after that.
Yeah.
That was just a startup cost for the first year to 300.
So finance had approved this at the last meeting. It went to exec. I take it we should, now that execs look at it, have a motion again today, just for clarification.
Yeah, just to keep everything transparent.
Ron, do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we go with the 2 new deputies, fill the slots.
Is there a second?
This is Blake. I would second that motion.
We have a second by Supervisor Ellison. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next,
Thank you.
let's go back to item 5C, with the financial consultants on the update.
Okay, Dan, were you able to get that and pull that up?
Yep, it's on the screen and they have printed copies.
Okay. And this is for as of July, so it's fairly current, obviously as current as we can get here. And actually, there really is nothing out of line or abnormal, I would say, differences with this. If you start at the top with the general fund revenues, and like we talked about last month, you know, your general fund revenues of 4.4 million in that actual year-to-date column are over $1.2 million higher than the previous year. Generally, that's for that state aid on the taxes to be written off. Kind of going on down the line there, there's nothing unusual about revenues. Human services is always lagging. They only got 13% of their revenues in, but you can see it's actually a little bit more than the prior year. Highway and county road and bridge funds, we have up to date now, or at least through June, and July isn't posted yet, but in the prior financial reports, those were a few months behind. So nothing unusual in my opinion in the revenues. The smaller funds, you know, there's grants involved and things can go back and forth somewhat. If you look at the expenditure side of things, you know, like we say at the top, you're at 58% of the year completed. And you can see, I mean, debt service, you make the one big payment, obviously that's going to be over 58%. But the other funds with routine expenses, nothing is even approaching 58%, 51, 55. And some smaller numbers there on the other funds. Point out the ARPA fund under expenditures. That's where you're basically paying for the repairs and the roof. And you spent about 800,000 year to date, and you had $1.5 million budgeted in total there. So, any questions on anything? Like I say, there's nothing unusual there. And since we last met, your audit report has been received. And I don't know if the committee routinely gets a copy of that or how that is usually handled.
Yeah, they all got a copy via email.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if you want to, and we can do this at a later meeting too. Go over some of the key stuff. Does the auditor actually meet with the committee?
They haven't in the past.
Okay. Well, anyway, I mean, I've done this my whole life, so I can, if we, if you want to set it up for the next meeting, we could spend some time going through the.
Yeah, I think the next
part.
meeting would be good. That would give us a little time before they want to approve the budget October 29th. It would give us a little time to think about things then.
Okay, and that'd be the September 12th meeting then?
Yes. And the one thing
Yes.
that I kind of a question on, it goes back to the highway stuff, is replacing equipment with kind of those state guidelines on how long you use equipment before replacing. There's a statement like that in the audit. It's kind of that boilerplate statement. Is I'd like to understand more specifically what that means in terms of like the highway equipment or other equipment. Is there a guideline for that that we can look at? So as finance, we can say, okay, we're replacing a snowplow truck and the state guidelines are kind of like this, and here's how we know we're following them. So
There's
that-
a estimated useful life, or a
Yep.
mandatory, actually, it's a mandatory depreciation schedule that the highway has to follow. I can send you that. I mean, it depends on the weight and the, all kinds of different things in the truck and graders and different things.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. We could talk about it with highway, but that statement's in the audit report. And that was something I wanted to ask you when we go through the audit report, but we'll do that September 12th.
Okay, but I'll send you that DOT depreciation schedule, and you'll at least have it. It's quite, it goes down to every chainsaw and every post hole digger,
Oh,
it
there
goes
we go.
really
There we
detailed.
go. There we go.
Yeah,
All right.
All right, Mike, if you send it to me, I'll forward it to the whole committee.
okay, yeah, I will. I won't be able to do that till tomorrow, but I'll get that to you.
Oh, that would be.
Any other
appreciated.
questions on the numbers? Like I say, you seem to be marching along in 24, fairly close to budget.
Okay.
I just had one question on the debt service. Now that should be over, right? Because we borrowed just in the beginning of the year. So is that number kind of in finality and we were under budget then? Or does that even out?
On the expense side there, you're looking, you do have some debt service that you pay every month. Some old vehicle loans, I think. So there are
Oh, yeah.
some, the big debt, was paid for in February, I think, or something like that. But yeah, there are continuing expenses with some of the older loans.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Yeah.
Next, we'll move back to 5D, health insurance discussion. Dan?
So, I know we had a rather contentious conversation last time. So, after the board meeting, both chairman here and I met with M3. And M3 is going to come back to us on September 12th. That's why we picked that date for the next meeting with a bunch of numbers and options for us to do. So we'll consider that then. Mr. Kinney would also like us to look at going into the state health plan. That does require us to submit an application. It costs $3,000 and they need our claims history for couple years. And they'll come back and tell us what the rate is. Now, I know Bayfield County, when they switched a couple years ago, they had to pay for the first year $8,400 a person for family each month. And then singles were uh, it was $700 each month or $8,400 a year per person, and it was $280 for singles. And that's because they had some claims history that were not very favorable. So I don't know what ours is gonna be. I know we had some heavy claims back in 21 with COVID and all. And I believe there was a couple of cancer issues. But if we use the Bayfield, assume the Bayfield numbers, we're looking at roughly $750,000 in extra payments in the first year. But I guess what I would like is permission to at least go ahead and apply and see what the numbers are. And maybe it comes back that we don't have that high buy-in because our claims history is good, and then it maybe becomes a viable option. In which case, if it does, the county board would have to meet in December to do a budget amendment to switch onto the plan January 1st. But I think it's worth at least exploring because it's a better option for employees, and it's a more stable option for the county. We don't have to worry about it going bankrupt by a large claim, basically.
So we would need to make a motion to approve 3,000 to go forward with just the application today.
Yeah, to approve going forward with the application. Yeah.
I would make a motion to approve $3,000 to submit an application to investigate whether we can go to the state health plan.
I would second that.
So I have a second by Ron. Discussion? Right. So the basic concept here is Ashland County has a small pool. There's not a lot of us. The state pool is much bigger, and because of that, the risk is spread out among far more people. So for the insurance companies, their risk is more manageable, and thus their rates can be more attractive. So if we make this transition with, if I'm understanding what the administrator said, the rates are more attractive for the employees, but also on the county end.
Right, the premiums are essentially the same. Bayfield County's premiums are essentially the same as ours. Dental is lower. They also offer vision and something else, and then hearing. And the deductibles are 500 and 1,000. The advantage that the county gets is that it's a stable system, predictable rate increases. And, we're not going every fall, like, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do? How are we going to monkey with the plan to make it work? It becomes something very stable and it helps us recruit and retain employees with a better health plan.
But going this way, we'd never recoup that like loan or whatever we call it from county funds to help pay offset when it was too low, right?
1.3 million would have to be written off. Yeah.
We'd never be able to
Nope.
that.
And I'll be honest, I mean, half the employees that benefit from that are gone anyhow.
Right.
So, but yes, we would have to write off the 1.3 million. And that would be, again, make our lives less, how do we pay for this? How do we do that?
I have state insurance and I know that what I get taxes that typically what the state puts in for my state insurance is more than what we were talking about. And so is it going to end up costing the county more long-term though?
No, it shouldn't, again, because as Mr. Kenny said, the pool is much, much bigger. And the state does offer a traditional health plan and an HSA plan. So employees can choose the HSA if they want to. And that's one of the things M3 is going to bring to us, an HSA option, along with a regular option. Apparently you can offer both of them, which we all thought was wrong, but M3 says you can.
And I strongly encourage employees to look at the HSA option. There is a lot of benefits to having an HSA.
Yeah, it is a night, and employees have the choice of which one they're gonna pick, and so in that respect, there's a lot of flexibility because it's gonna vary with employee where they're at in life and family or single. So that flexibility is nice. Could you talk specifically about dental, where we're at with dental right now, and if we do go to the state plan, because dental is an option there, how that would work?
All right, well, it's essentially the same dental plan we have. They're both Delta Dental with the same $1,000 deductible and $1,500 orthodontic for kids. But you know, ours, we're gonna have to raise ours pretty a lot because we've been losing money on dental. So we're gonna have to at least 50% raise it. Whereas again, the state pool is much smaller, much larger, and the rates are less than what we pay. So both the county would save on their, well, actually employees pay for dental 100% anyhow. So it would actually just be more of a benefit to employees. They still pay for their own dental.
Gary?
Until we see those rates from the state, but one thing that's included in state health insurance is a drug plan. There's no separate fee for your drug plan. Navitus is included in your health plan. So that may or may not save us money. We will have to see what the state says is our buy-in. But currently, I don't pay anything for my drugs, and neither do you. It's whichever plan you pick. Navitus is the drug, at least for now, Navitus handles all the drugs.
Yeah, and that alone could save us, I mean, it could pay for the buy-in. I mean, you're talking $1 million a year to spend on drugs. You know, that pays for the buy-in. Our problem is then is the old claims. You know, we still have to run out the old insurance plan, and there's still gonna be claims. So when Mr. Kinney asked me how much it was gonna cost, it was 2 to 3 million total. Because of one, the buy-in, and running out the claims. So there is gonna be a cost with that. But we would have to pay for those claims anyhow.
So the run out is just paying off the claims from the existing plan. As he just said, we're gonna pay those in time anyway. There's just gonna be this period of time if we're buying into the state plan that we would have to put in some money on the front end to get into that plan. So from a budget perspective, it's gonna be tight for a bit, but as I was looking at numbers, I was looking at Bayfield County's plan and they're on the state plan. And Laura, I believe 4 years ago, you suggested looking at the state plan, but we were in no way able to look at it. But I remembered that suggestion, which is why I was looking at it. In the state plan, employees have to pay employees have to pay at least 12%. So Bayfield County employees are paying 12% here. On a current plan, they're paying 10%. So when I look at the numbers with what Bayfield County employees have and what Ashland County is at, my interpretation of those numbers, unless I'm missing something in details like the drug plan or the dental and all of that, I mean, we need to go through it thoroughly. But as I look at that, because of the larger pool in the state plan, there's the benefit of a more attractive plan for the money. And if I were to pick, that's what I would pick. But there's this front end to get into it, which really, once we get firm numbers, we can say over the following years, we recoup that because of more attractive plans. And then after that, we've got better plans and rates than we otherwise would have. I think the stability is important because with Ashland County and our budgets and our, you know, where we stand in terms of finances and economic development, the county will have challenging times again. And we don't know what that would mean for employees if hard times hit. The city apparently is going to an HRA this fall, a health reimbursement account, moving from the HSA that they currently have. That's less attractive in my book by far. I have an HSA when I was working, and I'm glad I did. So you never know what happens to employees. And I think, as Dan has said more than a few times, you know, we compete with Bayfield County, and we always will. But if we have the same healthcare plan, then that hopefully would add some stability and attractiveness to working for Ashland County. So there's that benefit too. Less turnover means less hiring and training and all of that. So there's some benefits that might be a little hard initially to pencil in, but those would all be positive things going forward. Does that seem like a fair statement?
I think that's fair.
Okay.
I mean, what I've been telling Mr. Kinney for a long time is if we raise the rates on employees, they're gonna quit on us. It's just that simple. And morale's gonna go down the tubes. So I guarantee you that if we switch the state plan, almost every employee is gonna be happy with it.
But their rate that they're gonna get is they're gonna have to pay more, right?
Well, actually, they don't pay more because,
The plan's lower cost,
yeah, the plan's a lower cost because of the bigger pool and
but
they're chipping in 12% of the cost, yet the rates are still the same. And, employees are just looking at what comes out of their paycheck.
And that translates into all things being equal in the county budget, less on our end towards healthcare. So for the county budget, i.e. the taxpayers, this is also attractive long-term once we get through that initial buy-in. So we have a motion and a second to approve the $3,000 for the application. We're ready to vote then? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we will go to 5F, the elevator.
Okay, I guess the attachments kind of say it all. I do want to say when we did the budget last year, we approved 1.2 million, I think it was, for building repairs out of the ARPA fund, and the elevator was one of those things that was I think it was 1.3 million. We thought the building was going to cost like 1.1, 1.2, and we knew the elevator was be around 100 grand. So we did budget 1.3 out of ARPA for building repairs. So the money's there. It's our elevator's out of life. You can't buy spare parts anymore. And because we have an elevator in the building, the Americans with Disabilities Act requires us to continue to have an elevator. Anyhow, the letter here explains what's wrong with it. Again, that's in the packet. And then the quote is for what we do want to leave the elevator equipment in its current location. We simply don't have room in this building to take up space for an elevator motor and compressor and all that stuff. We just don't. The only place close to it is the old vault in the veterans office. And that is filled with stuff. I mean, that's where our copy paper's kept. That's where our extra chairs are kept for jury duty. That's where, I mean, it's literally the only storage spot we have in the building. And there is no other place we could store anything.
What was the rationale for moving it really? That really wasn't clear to me. Why move that?
Because it's cheaper for them to do it if we move it. But we don't want to relocate the elevator. We want to keep it where it is, the equipment where it is. So that would add $7,500 to the quote. I don't know about the cab interior upgrade. I guess that's up to you guys. Mr. Poofall, does the interior of the elevator need an upgrade? You use it more than I do, so.
Dick, does the inside of the elevator look okay to you? When you ride the elevator, does the inside look okay? No?
Do you want to spend $23,000 to fix it? 23,000.
Mr. Poofall, could you please use your microphone?
Oh, his mic.
It's up to you guys.
I've never seen the inside of it. I honestly don't know, but 23,000 seems a lot. But yet if we're gonna fix it, it might be worth it, especially if somebody that's using it says it's horrible in there. We might as well, because it's gonna need it at some point, probably.
Yeah. I mean, it is the original car and everything. So the interior is all original. Everything's original on it.
I'm amazed that 23,000 is the cost of that. It seems high to me, but. I mean, that's more than redoing a bathroom, isn't it? Maybe in your house? It doesn't even have a toilet.
Well, the problem is you can only have one elevator repair company because they're all proprietary. So if you haven't noticed, you have to get a notice repair person and
What's the cost for the elevator, not the interior?
$95,996.03. So it's almost 25% more just for the
right
interior.
here, 95. So, and we are coming in under budget on the building, so we thought it was gonna be 1.1, 1.2, and it's 950.
I know Pat Kinney likes to keep things in original stance, but as someone younger, I think modernization of our building when we're doing it, I think look, we're not gonna do it again later. So if this is original I would suggest we do the interior at the same time because they're here, it's the same company. But I'm just one guy.
Dan, what do you think when you look at the inside?
I kind of agree with Blake. I mean, if we're gonna ever do it, now is the time to do it. We're not gonna come back to this again. I can guarantee you that. I can't imagine any future finance committee was supporting doing anything with it, especially when we're using ARPA.
Yeah, we might as well. My feeling is while they're here, get it done.
Well, Blake is right about how I think, I want to use the word vintage. I guess the thing that comes to my mind on that, and I don't know what it looks like. I think I've been on it once and wasn't paying attention. But what I think about on the inside is we've got people that come and go in this building, attorneys, firms that we are hiring or interviewing, other people. What kind of impression does it give if they're riding that elevator? What do they think of us? If they ride a crummy elevator? I know my impression of when I get in a crummy elevator, I just think of the whole place that way, but that's just me and my impression. I extrapolate to the whole place if I haven't stuck in an elevator and it looks crappy. So I won't argue with if the committee wants to do it.
Just for clarity, do we still have a little bit of ARPA money that we could put towards this?
After this is done and the building's done, we'll have a couple $100,000, few hundred left.
And since this was part of the original kind of plan, like this additional 25, do we have to like go ask specifically to have it earmarked, or can we kind of earmark additional funds from ARPA for it?
No, we're gonna have to, if you're talking about with the balance, the ARPA funds, when we do the budget this year, we're gonna have to allocate it. It has to be done by the end of the year. And lost taxes is an easy one to do. And then we could spend it on literally anything we want.
So Dan, we've got some options here. Do you have a recommendation for the committee if it wants to go with the interior also?
I would say do the interior and keep the elevator where it is, the mechanics. So we'd be looking at 132.
Any discussion on that recommendation? Anyone want to make a, Mr. Pufo?
Look. Our building isn't new, but our elevator will be. And if you look at the overall price, it's about $1 million to replace that, right? The whole thing. So it'd be 90-some thousand to revamp it. With the courtroom on the third floor, it's relatively important that we make it accessible. And that's a busy courtroom.
Yeah, and I will say the jail brings people up through the elevator because they're always in shackles. So they can't really climb stairs.
there is a, what was it, a 4-week time when it would be out of service while they're doing this? Is that what they estimated was 4 weeks, I think? Pat's shaking his
Yeah.
head, yeah,
Yeah,
so.
there will be some time. that we're
It,
honest.
is there an alternative or are we just gonna have to deal with not having the elevator for 4
We're
weeks?
just gonna have to deal with it.
Okay.
So what I do is I, schedule it with the court. Let, let McKnight know and the sheriff know. We're doing the service then, and
During COVID, we had used the breading center because it was a bigger area, so the court has operated out of the breading center before.
Is someone ready to make a motion?
Brad will make a motion to spend, the 95, $95,966.03 plus the 7,500 for, keeping the elevator room the same and the 22,875 to upgrade the interior.
Is there a second?
This is Blake. I would second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we will go to reports and updates. The health insurance update.
we have not received the newest one. You have seen the latest one. We
Okay,
should get it in a week or two.
okay, and then we'll have another one September 12th, I take it.
We'll have one for September 12th, yeah.
Okay, and then going to the treasurer's report.
Just standard.
Any questions?
As always, she is checking with Northern State Bank every 2 months or so about rates. I would expect our interest rate to drop after next month. Fed's gonna cut rates, it looks like, with inflation at 3%. And the market's screaming at them, so. So if it changes, just don't be surprised.
So we got 6B, the treasurer report, and 6C, county investments on the agenda.
It's the same thing, same document.
So did we purposely add 2 items there or?
I think they just got a mistake. in the
Okay,
print.
so we're done with that then. And then going to 6D, the sales tax review.
So we continue, I can't see this. Guess that didn't work. Why is this being? Stop it. Sorry, this thing is actually being weird on me. Still doing it. There. Okay, we continue to be doing well on sales tax. Other counties, I'm not so much. So we're still up from the same month last year. We're up 18,000 from last year. And overall, we're still up 9% for the year. There has been a drop in sales tax throughout the state. So we are kind of an anomaly right now. And that drop in sales tax is going to affect our shared revenue the following year. Because shared revenue is now based on sales tax. Let me say this correctly. So of the 5% sales tax the state charges, 1% of that, or 20%, is shared revenue for counties, cities, towns, and villages. So the theory was that as sales tax goes up, shared revenue would go up. But if sales tax is not going up and staying stagnant, we're going to get the same shared revenue. So it's something to keep an eye on. Well, like I said, we're still up 9% this year. So we're doing well.
Any questions or comments? Then we'll go to number 7, administrator updates.
Okay, so building should be done this month. So you can say yay for that. Everybody should be happy. They're almost done with this side. They did the acid washing like 2 days ago. So they just have to finish up on this side, and then there's some bottom joints that they got around the building they got to fill. And then they'll be done. So, and they already fixed the roof part, the copper on the roof. Yeah. In fact, they started it before we even approved it. So that's how sure they were. So, I had a meeting with Discover Wisconsin yesterday. So the Ryan Tim episode is going to air September 10th. It's going to get a full media blast on all their outlets. The fisheries story is going to be October 14th. And the April Stone episode, November 19th. So that's going to be at all Discover Wisconsin media outlets, TV, Facebook, YouTube, everything. And this is something we had to talk about in February or so. There's gonna be I'm gonna be doing a podcast with them. I think it's when the legislative exchanges is. I think it's the end of February next year. Do we want anybody else to join that podcast, and what do we want the topic to be? Most counties have been doing quality of life and tourism, or they've been doing economic development and tourism. Or so I don't. If you want to think about what topics you want, but I would think quality of life, one, to get people up here, maybe to stay and build houses, and 2, for the tourism aspect, obviously. So about they're also it's outlined on the sheet I handed out to you guys. So they're also going to run a contest on all their media. It's going to run for a month. We can pick what month we want to do it. And there's some sort of prizes. So they can get hotel stays at the Hotel Schwamigan for free, or the Cobblestone, whichever one. But what do we want the prize winners to do when they get up here? You know, what's the reason for them to come up here? Do we want them to go fishing? Do we want them to go cruise the islands, or I don't know what? So if you guys want to think about that too, we'll obviously seek donations from whoever it is to cover the cost. So, and then they also have a blog spot that that if we have a topic, a tourism type topic, they can write up a piece and put it in there. So all that stuff will be happening soon. And so hopefully we'll see a nice bump in people visiting here. So I guess that's about all I got.
We could add an agenda item for future agenda items.
Oh.
On this, we don't have here
Okay, we can.
in line for future agenda items. So if my memory serves me, it seems I'm going to ask you to do another update. If my memory serves me, I'm going to squeeze it in here. It seems like quite some time ago, you and I had a bit of a conversation on the county pursuing either a business park or an industrial park in Ashland County for a number of reasons, one of which is the tax base. But then when you mentioned what's going on with the state and the sales tax, we would like as much of that sales tax in Ashland County as opposed to a neighboring county. So I'm going to ask you, is there any update on thinking about that, or who you might talk to? Maybe the local banker or somebody, a grant writer, see if we want to pursue anything that way?
I don't know any bankers who would be interested in it, but
So I did have a business owner that was approached by Bayfield County to put infrastructure for their business. They would put the roads, they would give tax incremental financing. It's an Ashland County resident. They came and just said, hey, I want to build in Ashland County. Can we start talking about a business park? So I talked to Mr. Kinney. I think this group here I do think should be talking from an economic development standpoint about this discussion. We've had some businesses that have had opportunities to relocate to Bayfield County, just across the border. So I think that makes a lot of sense from an economic development standpoint.
So where does this person want to build?
They would like to build south of Ashland, not within the city of Ashland.
Okay, there's a problem. Under state statutes, towns cannot create TIF districts.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be TIF. It could be just infrastructure. So like helping with easements, helping with road restrictions to and from sites, making sure that the site is accessible to certain roads with certain things. So again, I think we should just be talking about it because in Ashland, they have the industrial park, which we've talked about isn't the greatest looking.
But yeah, just for, if you want to talk to some people
Yeah, I'll
and
talk
see if
to,
we can, because Bayfield County is obviously doing something on their side. We have talked a little bit, about doing this, but there's some things that are challenges or we can or can't do, or we'd have to work with others. But I think it's something we should put on a future agenda.
Yeah.
And see if there's something we can do, because obviously Bayfield County's and something happening there, so.
well, and it might be like in Iron River or something where they can do something with a TIF.
Next meeting date,
We said September 12th already.
September 12th,
2 o'clock work for everyone?
works for those who are gonna join us then?
Yeah, M3 will join us then.
Okay. One more motion. Well, go ahead.
We'll make a motion to
Go
adjourn.
ahead.
Oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Laura.
Pat, did you get your answer about that aging account in the,
I'm going to get a fuller answer between now and when I get your request and I go through things. I'll go through it in more detail
okay,
between now and then, but thank you. Ron, you made a motion to adjourn?
Blake made a motion
Blake
to
made a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Ronald second.
Ron will second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.